back. I'm just going to park my car real fast. Okay. We'll just grab that.
Did you have another question?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go
Well,
ahead and make your statement, and then I'll
Yeah.
ask you a question when I ask
Okay.
you. Just look at Gary
Okay, yeah.
to answer it.
And one of the things that I'm really inspired about it myself is that I have a son that's 32 years old, and he never, unfortunately, never got a chance to meet Bruce because he was just a youngster when Bruce left. But you know, he's become a great follower of Bruce, and so he works with me, and so he's helping me to you know, to teach people that, you know, want to learn something about Bruce and learn what he was teaching, and I think that's really great because he's gotten to the point where he's even much better than I am in terms of martial art techniques and all that. But he's a very humble young man that just realizes where he is and who he is, and that's a testament of what Bruce has done for him, and you know, also.
So this is sort of being passed
Exactly,
on
exactly.
from father to son. Yeah, that's good.
Gary asked about, you know, what Bruce would think. I was wondering if you could tell Gary the feelings that you have as you go through this exhibit, through, you know, the passage through Bruce's life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm very appreciative and honored to be able to come down here and go to the museum here. I've been here a number of times, and each time I come here, I see some little thing that reminds me of the friendship and what all Bruce was all about. That really makes me feel just like I think the rest of the people who come down here. You know, you can't help but being inspired.
And then I had a question from the things I've read. It's like, it seems like he often said to people, "I'm going to be the greatest. You know, I will be the biggest star." Did he ever, when you were hanging around this area, did he ever tell you what his goals were?
You know, even way back shortly after Bruce was here, he had these big ideas in his mind, and I remember in one case he wrote a letter back to a lady friend young lady friend in Hong Kong, and it was about 2 or 3 pages long. And he let me read it one time when we were down in Chinatown, and you know, here I was hanging out with this young man that I got to know so intimately, and when I saw this letter, and I was just impressed to the highest level of what he was talking about in this letter, you know. And Bruce was a guy that was born with adversity. A lot of people don't know this, but his left leg was about an inch shorter than his right leg, and he had to overcome that to be able to, you know, to become the great martial artist that he was. But he did it in such a way that he made it work for him. And he was a guy that you just can't believe this, but I had a stack of letters like this that there were more personal letters. And one day my mother said to me, "Son, you got to clean your bedroom out." And we had an incinerator in my store, and so I took all that stuff, and I thought Bruce was going to live forever, and they were just personal letters, and I just burned them all, and now I regret it to this day. But the point on these letters I wanted to bring out is that here was a man that had faced such adversity down there. He created, with his screenwriter, done the plays for himself to make movies out of him. And at the last instance, he was told, he said, "Bruce, we're not ready to be able to, you know, have a hero of a minority level." But he never let that bother him. Each letter that he would write me, he wrote me at least once a month, or maybe sometimes 3 or 4 times. And each letter like that, when he wrote me, he would tell me about some project that fell through because of the discriminatory, you know, status. But he never gave up. Before that letter was over, he was talking about what he's going to do next. And in the final analysis, he told me, he said, "Taky," he said, "I haven't been able to make it over here because they don't want to give me a chance." And he said, "I understand that," because he said it's all about money. But he said, Charles Bronson, Clint Eastwood, they both went to Italy and made spaghetti westerns, and he said then they were able to come back and make their own terms. And he said, "I just been offered," he said, "to go back to, you know, to either Run Shaw or Golden Harvest," he said, "and make some movies." And he said that's what I'm going to do, just like they did, he said. And that, I think that's one of the reasons why he wrote that famous that little proclamation of himself, where he said he's going to be the richest the Chinese in the world, or something of that nature. But here was a man that didn't let adversity defeat him. I mean, it's difficult because I know every one of us have been through certain adversities, but it's pretty tough to get out of them. But Bruce was a guy that looked beyond that each time, and that has given me a lot of courage in my own life, because I went through a lot of turmoil and things like that, but I've followed that philosophy of Bruce's, and so far I've been very happy to say that I've been able to come through all those things.
That's terrific. Good.
Thank you. I wasn't ready yet. I need to cue you guys. Are you ready?
Yep.
I'm
Mhm.
rolling.
Okay.
Know what this represents?
We created this setting to give you a feel of what it was like for Bruce Lee growing up in Hong Kong. And against this wall, we recreated this image of a movie studio. These are the original lobby cards from his last movie called Thunderstorm. This is when Bruce Lee was 16 years old, and this was the last movie that he made.
And these are Hong Kong movies as well?
These are clips from the various movies that he made from the time he was 10 years old to the time he was 16. And much of these clips are meant to show his facial gestures, his mannerism, these same facial gestures and mannerisms that he carried into his adult movie career. There's got to be one night where you didn't eat your Wheaties.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's all it takes.
Okay, remember, just don't start talking until you get around to that basket there.
Okay.
And whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Now what does this represent?
We created an old movie wall with Bruce Lee's original lobby cards from his last movie. This is called Thunderstorm, when he was 16 years old. And this was the last movie that Bruce Lee made in Hong Kong before coming to the United States.
And now these are also from his Hong Kong movies?
These are clips from the various movies that he made growing up in Hong Kong. A lot of these clips are meant to show, give you a feeling of his facial expression, his gestures, the grimace on his face. It's meant to show you what it was like, you know, his acting career in Hong Kong, and his mannerisms that he carried into his adult films.
And whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Okay. A lot of people don't realize that Bruce Lee was a childhood actor, that he made 23 movies when he was Hong Kong. This here, what you see on the screen, is clips from his many of the movies he made growing up. A lot of these clips are meant to show his mannerism, his facial gestures that he took into his adult film career. Over here you have the first appearance of him in a cameo role when he was a baby. He actually started appearing in movies when he was 3 months old. Photos over here show you the different stages of his movie career. A lot of people didn't know that Bruce was the cha-cha champion of Hong Kong. He was also the boxing champion of Hong Kong. So what you see right away when you walk through this exhibit is that Bruce Lee was more than a martial artist. He was a childhood actor as early as 3 months old. His breakthrough role was in the movie called The Kid. And here is the first publication with Bruce Lee's image on it. This publication appeared in 1950 from his movie called The Kid. After that, he also appeared in many other movies and on the cover of many of the Hong Kong magazines during the 6 or 7 years that he was in Hong Kong.
Ready?
Yeah, we're ready. What are some of your favorite items in here, Perry?
Some of my favorite toys is the Bagatette pinball game, the pencil tablet,
Sorry. But if there's something in here, that's good, but I can't really get back to this other
Okay.
case.
Okay.
Okay.
You've got this really big collection. What are some of the reasons that these items are collectible?
Some of these toys represent, the Green Hornet Kato toys represents the rarest of all your cult collectible toys. Most of these toys that you see in these cases are almost non-existent. These toys go back 40 years. They're all licensed by Greenways Production, 20th Century Fox. Very few people even realize that this many toys came out tied to the 26 episodes of Green Hornet. All these toys have the image of Bruce on it. They're all licensed. They're ultra rare. They're all in mint condition. Toys like the Bagatette pinball game that I have, the Green Hornet mask, the pencil tablet. There's probably less than 12 of these toys in the whole world in the condition that you see them in right now. They represent the rarest of all your cult collectible toys that are out there. and extremely hard. These are the toys that are most sought after by Bruce Lee collectors. And they represent the earliest of all the items that have his image on it.
Okay, I wanted to cover how much stuff do you have?
Okay.
Where do you get it?
Okay.
Let's see, was there something else? And since we're on the, Dave, can you back that back
Okay.
right up?
Okay.
Since we're on the topic of just collecting, you could ask him, like, what are some of the most valuable items, just period? Since this is the section talking about collecting, we don't have to
Okay.
just talk about the Green Hornet. You could mention maybe the couple most valuable, pieces that you have.
So how many items do you have in your collection, and where do you get these things?
I have probably approximately 15,000 items related to Bruce Lee, and these items usually encompass not just toys but action figures, magazines, personal artifacts. I've been able to acquire these, most of my collection, by trading with other collectors through trade magazines, through auctions, and now, of course, recently through eBay.
And what are some of the most valuable items, do you think, in your collection?
Well, by far the most valuable items relating to Bruce Lee would be his personal artifacts. It would be his personal letters, his weapons, his equipment, his business cards, anything written by Bruce, essays. That, of course, is the most desirable that most super collectors are after. After that, it would probably be licensed, rare, old toys tied to the Green Hornet period.
Can you get into the collecting as far as like this spin? I mean, this must cost a lot of money, or how do you?
Ready?
How his wife feels about it?
So you must be like a pretty rich guy. Is that how the deal is?
No, I bought a lot of these toys early on. Growing up, I was able to find a lot of these toys at the store. And, when he wasn't that popular and when the public didn't realize the value of it, I was able to buy a lot of these toys at a lot of the toy stores. A lot of these things I buy, my wife doesn't realize how much I'm spending because, I really don't tell her, nor do I spend as much as she thinks I spend. When you get in on the early stages of collecting, it becomes a little bit more affordable. You buy the magazines at cover price, you buy a lot of the toys at cover price. It's only nowadays, with all these toys on eBay and all these collectors competing for it, that it becomes quite expensive. And it has become a very expensive hobby, especially when you're going after the more desirable Bruce Lee items. There's a lot of junky Bruce Lee toys out there. You can find a lot of toys on Bruce at Toys R Us. You can constantly find magazines, but what most collectors are after are usually the older, rare stuff from the 60s to the early 70s.
So for you, it's not about the most. It's more about some very specific items that he actually had in his possession.
At this point in my life, I'm going for more of the personal stuff. I got way too much stuff that, to me, it has become quite junky. We do have the technology now to put Bruce's image on just about anything. And I'm at that point where I'm looking for more of the quality items that relate to him. So much of the stuff written about Bruce has been hashed over so many times. There's just too many illegal bootleg toys on Bruce that you can buy overseas. And it gets to the point where it just takes up a lot of room in your basement. And of course, my wife gets a little upset with me constantly buying at my age. So I have to kind of cut back on it.
Good. You guys ready?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Now there's this photo of Bruce Lee wearing this coat, and we sort of think of him as sort of larger than life, but when you look at this coat, it's not that big.
Bruce Lee was really only about 5'6", 5'7" at the most. He weighed his weight fluctuated between 125 pounds to 140. Essentially, that's why they call him the Little Dragon. He was not that tall, and yet he was bigger than life, like you said.
Where'd you get the coat?
This coat was
Can you
obtained.
ask him that here?
Yeah.
So how did you happen to get this coat?
This coat was obtained at an auction that his wife held for at Superior Gallery Auction.
Go ahead and ask him that.
Okay.
And always
Okay.
talk to Gary.
Oh, okay.
not-
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
So now how did you get this coat?
This coat was put up for auction by his wife at Superior Gallery Auction, and it was obtained during one of those auctions back about 10 years ago.
Would you not want to say about what you think it's worth on
No.
camera?
Probably not. Yeah. Yeah.
So do I understand this is just part of your magazine collection?
This wall represents only about 100 out of 3,000 magazines I own. Many of these magazines are extremely rare and valuable. The design team wanted me to come up with different portrait shots of Bruce. We wanted magazines with different images of him from all 5 of his movies. So I came up with this choice of magazines that you currently see here up on the wall.
And a couple that you think are particularly significant?
This is Bruce Lee's first cover appearance in Hong Kong after he flew back from Thailand after making The Big Boss. This is a very highly sought after magazine because it's the first appearance of him on a magazine out of Hong Kong. This is a magazine out of Iran. A lot of people would never believe that Bruce Lee appeared on the cover of every single magazine from every single country in the world, even a lot of the Arabic countries.
Okay.
Now I understand this is just a portion of your magazine collection?
This wall of magazine, which represents about 100 magazine, represents about only about, let's start over again. Okay, let's go. Okay.
So now I understand this is just a portion of your magazine collection.
This wall of magazine only represents about 100 out of 3,000 magazines I own.
And you know, something significant about one of these would be what?
This magazine right here is the first appearance of Bruce Lee in Hong Kong on the cover of a magazine. This is when he flew back from Thailand after making The Big Boss. A magazine up here is from an Arabic country. A lot of people didn't realize that Bruce Lee was so popular that he appeared on the cover of every magazine from every country in the world. And here he is from a magazine cover in Iran.
Now, a lot of these don't seem to be about martial arts at all.
No, Bruce Lee was so influential that he appeared on the cover of magazines such as Grand Royale, which is an underground alternative magazine. He appeared on the cover of a DVD magazine, a cover of a sports magazine. He also appeared on a magazine called Real Soul, which had nothing to do with martial artists. All Real Soul talked about was black musicians during that time period, like Al Green, Jackson 5, and Isaac Hayes. Yet they stuck his image on there just to sell the magazine. That's how influential Bruce Lee was.
And go ahead.
Now this is what you think of as one of the most unique items that you have.
That's one of the more unique pieces of equipment in the martial arts world. Bruce Lee had his partner James Lee build that equipment for him in the early 60s. That's how innovative Bruce Lee was. That pieces of equipment like that you're looking at right now don't even exist today. Very few martial artists trained the way Bruce Lee trained. He trained for real. And what you see with that apparatus is that it's spring-loaded. You know, you punch to the eye and punch to the throat, and it springs back. So, you know, you're seeing a very innovative piece of equipment that, to this very day, very few martial artists have, you know, would ever practice on.
Did I miss how you got that one? Did you say it in denied space?
Wow.
I started asking him if his statement that this was one of the most unique items in the collection.
Oh, go ahead and ask him how I got a hold of it.
Now what we're looking at here, this is one of your most unique collectibles.
Yes, this is one of the more unique pieces of martial art apparatus. Bruce Lee had his partner James Lee build this piece of equipment for him.
So he designed it.
He designed it, and he had his partner James Lee build this equipment for him back in 1960. The equipment is spring-loaded. You punch to the eye and punch to the throat, and it springs back. And it just shows you how innovative Bruce Lee was, that to this very day, you don't see pieces of equipment like this out there.
And ask him where he got that.
And how did you acquire that piece?
I acquired that piece when Bruce Lee was living at Ruby Chow's. He had left it there, and I was able to pick up that piece from the family.
And go ahead, and you guys just talk. I'm getting a wide shot behind you.
That's it's a little frightening.
It is. You know, he had more than, you know, one of those built. You know, he experimented, and that was the best of the 3 that came out. You know, you can tell by looking on the side, you know, the amount of pounding it took. And, you know, Bruce Lee was so good that no living human being can really give him a meaningful workout, so he had to turn himself to machines. And and also too, he always wanted things to give. He wanted to feel the impact. So he created all these heavy-duty type equipment. There's a lot of wonderful equipment he created through the years. And that's just, to me, one of the more unique pieces, and it really stands out. That's the way he was.
You ready?
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So this is another item that's very unique, and why is this important?
This shows you how artistic Bruce Lee was. Bruce Lee was really an incredible artist. He drew wonderful pictures of fighting warriors, and this is just an example of his artistic ability. He signed this for a fan during a demonstration back in Washington, D.C. And again, you'll see other artistic drawings of Bruce as you go through this exhibit.
So he probably drew this really quickly.
Oh yeah. He would be able to draw sketches of people fighting. He did all the original choreography, sketching out all the fighting scenes. And this is just another example of how talented he was.
And he signed this.
Can we do? Is everybody ready?
Yep.
Give me a second. And go.
Now this is another kind of one-of-a-kind item. What's important about this?
Bruce Lee was very, very artistic. He drew wonderful artistic pictures of fighting warriors during his spare time. He drew out all the original fighting scenes when he did all the choreography for his movies. And this is just another example of how artistic Bruce Lee was. He drew this for a fan back in Washington, D.C. During the demonstration, and he signed it Bruce Lee Kato. And what's unique about this is there's not too many signed pieces that survive from 1966 that signed Bruce Lee Kato, and yet in this exhibit you see 2 of those pieces.
So Bob, tell me about the connection between Interim and the Bruce Lee exhibit here.
Well, Interim's a nonprofit. We've been around since 1969, and we were charged with the preservation and development of the International District. We just acquired a piece of property on Main Street, 6th and Main, earlier this year, and we're planning to build housing there for 50 families, low-income and working families. And we'll get about 80% of the project financed, maybe a little bit more financed, but we always have to come up with more resources, more money when we have projects like this. And as you know, nonprofits we're raising money all the time. And so we were looking for a new, innovative way of bringing people into the district and raising some funds for our project and other projects that we have. And Perry Lee and I got together at the Four Seas Lounge one evening and talked about this being the 30th anniversary of Bruce Lee's death. And Perry mentioned that he'd sure like to have his collection shown at some venue. And I said, Perry, I think I got an idea. Let's do a fundraiser. We can do it more of a long-term fundraiser. We'll put an exhibit together. I know some people who are in that business. And so that's how it started. The concept started with Perry and I talking. And then I recruited Elaine Coe and our staff, and of course our board, to go along with this major undertaking. And once we were given the permission by the board to go ahead with the exhibit, put a team together of former Wing Luke Asian Museum staff and staff members from Seattle Scenic Design, the creative forces out there. And we all went to Perry's home and other places where he had stored his collection, and they said, "Wow, we can really do something with this."
I'm wondering, do you personally have a sort of Bruce Lee connection in some way? Why is this important to you?
Well, I'd heard about Bruce Lee when he was in Seattle, and I was a young jock. I boxed in the old days. In the Marine Corps and amateur, and so there was something there, but I never met Bruce. I'd seen him on the street in the International District, and people would point him out, but I never did meet him. So I was not a fan, but I knew how popular he was in the international scale. So I knew that if we did something here on his 30th anniversary, we could probably draw some people to an exhibit.
And this exhibit will somehow help build housing for people. I mean, that's sort of the...
It'll generate the resources that we need, you know, to fill some of the gaps when we're building housing and raising major funds to build that housing. And the important thing too is to bring people into the International District. This is our neighborhood, you know, and it's people live here and they do business here, and we get the tourist trade. And Bruce Lee is an international star, so people from we found out that people from all over the world and all over the United States are drawn to our community. So that was another reason to have it down here.
And there is this Bruce Lee Seattle connection that's very real.
It's
and
very
strong.
real. It is.
And so getting the connection between the International District and Seattle and Bruce Lee, it's not such a stretch, and
Exactly.
people are going to pay.
Exactly. Some of the old colleagues of Bruce Lee, Jesse Glover and Taky Kimura and Doug Palmer, they've sort of come back, and they remembered their time with Bruce in the old days, and they're featured in a lot of the film clips that we have, and they still talk about them and they hold them in very, very high esteem. And both Jesse and Taky still hold classes, martial arts classes, 30 plus years later.
So if you could talk to people and invite people to come down and see this, what would you say?
You know, I'm amazed. I walk through the exhibit 2, 3, 4 times a week, and I catch something new every time. There's so much there, so much of the exhibit, so much of the collection there. But the phrases, you know, and he was a philosopher, and when you read them, sometimes they have different meaning every time you see them. And our team created the 9 sets, like stage sets, and you're walking into the period. It's a period piece. You're walking into the 60s and 70s and into Hong Kong, and you see the Black Beauty from the Green Hornet Kato series busting out of the wall, and then the water wall. It's just sort of, you know, sort of easy and flowing, and there's a lot to it. And I tell people, come just to see this exhibit.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Good.